Did they make the playoffs this year? Did the Tigers make the playoffs this year, Dave?
No, but nobody expected them to even come close, and they actually came relatively close in their division. They finished second in their division. So
I want to say the last time I really paid attention to baseball, I paid a lot of attention to baseball. I feel like this is appropriate given that we're on Razzball right now, which is known for their fantasy baseball content. I think Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander were still both in the Tigers rotation.
Those are the
and Miggy,
Rick Porcello.
Miggy had just won the Triple Crown.
Yeah,
Rick Porcello. Yeah, those teams. Yeah.
We had several pitchers.
No time anymore, man.
Went on to win Cy Youngs. Other places.
Oh, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal staff, incredible staff. We've got Ronald McDonald in the chat. Real quick, I want to shout out. He says, hello, Ronald. Thanks for tuning in to Dynasty Diehards. I know we're not talking about football right now. I think we need a reset, Dave. What do you think? Little reset?
Fair enough.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Dynasty Diehards. It is week 15 of NFL action. It is the fantasy playoffs, more than likely, unless, of course, your league commissioner is an absolute sadist and has a week 18 championship, which is, look, I had one of those last season. It's a Debbie league that I'm in, a two-time champion. Yeah, I'll take credit for that. My first ever Debbie league, first 2 seasons in a Debbie league. We had a week 17-18 combined championship, and I was mad about it, right? I would have lost had that championship ended week 17, but we went to week 18, and Mr. Nyheim Hines had 2 punt returns for a touchdown, if you remember correctly. And in our league, those punt returns count as individual points for the player. I had no choice but to start Nyheim Hines in that game, and I won. Now, the person I beat was furious, absolutely furious, and I did feel kind of bad, but, also... the rules of the league, right? What can you do?
Right.
What can you do? Well, guys, on this week's show, we are going to get into some must-have early dynasty targets. Guys, you should be kind of maybe kicking the tires on. You may not be able to make trades in your leagues right now, but you can kind of start to line things up, right, Dave? Like, there's no reason you can't start making some deals. There's no collusion when it comes to that stuff when you're talking about dynasty fantasy football. Now, before we get into our must-haves here, Dave, we have some questions in the chat. We're going to start with Mr. Ronald McDonald here. Please grade the trade. I traded away Purdy, Etienne, Jamar Chase. My backup running backs are Ford, Chase, Brown, and Javonte Williams. My backup quarterback is Kyler. I was a weak on wide receivers. Have I won this trade? So the first thing I'm going to say before we get into it, Dave, don't ever look at trades as win or loss. You won it if it was good for you. If you made your team better, it doesn't matter what you did with the other team, what the other team got. There are no winners. There are no losers. Ideally, both sides win trades here. Now, what I'll say about this one, I don't like getting rid of Purdy in Dynasty.
No, I don't really.
The upside with this kid, I mean, I like Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray's upside is not inevitable, but undeniable.
But if you were weak at wide receivers and now you have Jamar Chase,
you've got Jamar Chase. I mean, that's right, exactly. And even rest of this season with Jake Browning at quarterback, that kid has looked good. So, I think you got a good deal here. I don't love you giving up Purdy. I'm okay with you giving up Etienne. You got Jamar Chase in return, so I really can't be mad at it. We've got Ronald also saying hello to Toronto Dave, who is also in the chat. What is up, my friend? One more question. Lynn Dorfins, thank you again for tuning in. Sup, guys? If Waller at New Orleans goes, where will you rank him in PPR? Other rough options include Pitts at Carolina, Logan Thomas at the Rams, Kraft versus Tampa Bay. We've got Chigo Conco against Houston and Tyler Conklin against Miami. I mean, I feel like you have to start Waller here, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Especially with as well as Tommy DeVito playing. Yeah, start him. If he doesn't go on this list, probably going to go Kyle Pitts.
Yeah,
I'm ready to be hurt.
I probably would.
I think this could be a big week. It's Carolina, division rival. No, maybe they use him a little bit more.
Carolina's not outstanding against the tight end, so
they're not. They're good against quarterbacks. They're going to give Ritter fits, so maybe he throws the ball to Pitts a little bit more. I don't know. It's hard to say here. We've also got Jamie in the chat saying, "What is up, guys?" Jamie, thank you for always tuning in. All right, Dave, let's get to it here. The first player we're going to talk about, and this shouldn't be much of a surprise to anybody, Tennessee quarterback Will Levis. He's been real up and down this season, right? You can't really deny that. However, dude, that comeback on Monday Night Football.
It was fun to watch.
It was fun to watch. And he's looked rough, but here's some important stats I want to throw out about Levis. Now, this is minimum 120 passing attempts or 10 rushing attempts, ranks among rookie QBs. Second in yards per attempt, 7.2, second to CJ Stroud. First in receiver drop rate, though. So we've given him crap, but his receivers are dropping the ball at a higher rate than any other rookie quarterback, 9.2%. He's first in big time throw rate, 5.9%. And on the rushing side, he's third in yards after contact per attempt with 1.38. He ranks above Anthony Richardson in that category. And with a minimum of 20 attempts, 20 plus yards down the field passing, he's second in ADOT at 30 yards and second in big time throw rate at 38.6. Who does that sound like to you?
That's a gunslinger. That's John Elway.
That's John Elway. And that's what I see in this kid. And for those of you who maybe aren't old enough to have seen John Elway play, unfortunately, we're so old, Dave. There are people watching the show that weren't born when he played.
Who's John Elway?
Imagine Josh Allen, but he makes smarter decisions on the field. And I think that's what Will Levis is. I think he's Josh Allen with a bigger, more accurate arm, and he's already making better decisions. You can be concerned about the completion rate right now, 58.1%. But he's had 2 bad weeks where he was sub 50%, a lot of drops those weeks. You take out those 2 outlier weeks, 64.4% completion percentage. That's a pretty good completion rate for a rookie guy who's just thrown in on a mediocre offense that really can only run the ball.
Yeah, you got to like
with
it.
With a terrible offense.
Like Hard to believe you're saying a guy that eats bananas with the peel on is good at making decisions, though.
Yep. You know, at this point right now, I'm willing to pay up for Levis. Especially, and I'm sorry, Dave, but Kenny Pickett.
I'm not ready to shut the door yet, but you know,
I'm not. I might be
delusional. I might be delusional.
You're not, and I'm not 100% ready to shut the door on Pickett either. But right now, you have to be realistic about the fact that Pickett might not pan out, or maybe you're someone who's relied heavily on Mac Jones. That's not panning out. Bailey Zappi looked really good last week. He won me a fantasy matchup in my home league. I had to start him because of injuries.
I had to start him in a super flex spot, and wow.
Right. So if you've got one of these quarterbacks that just hasn't panned out, you've invested in them, see what you can do to get Levis. In this offense in Tennessee, he's pretty much the perfect fit. The early Broncos offenses where John Elway just lit it up, they were run first. They ran on first and second down, threw on third. Every series. That's what they did. He can be very successful in this offense. I'm not going to say he's a top 5 QB, but I think he has the potential of being a top 10 QB. And right now on Fantasy Pros, his ECR is QB 37, Dave.
You know, it's way down there. Yeah, you're getting a bargain. If you can get someone to trade him for QB 37 type value, getting a bargain.
Which I really do. I think you can. A lot of people just aren't that high on Levis, and I'm okay with it. And it's because of the damn banana and the mayonnaise and the coffee. But you know what? Enough about Will Levis. Rashee Rice in Kansas City.
I love this guy.
Well, there really isn't an offense that needs a wide receiver to emerge more than Kansas City. Like, we're watching this team fall apart. They're 8-5. They're only 1 game ahead of the Denver Broncos in the division right now. Who would have thought we'd be saying that, especially after the Broncos' 1-5 start? It's hard to believe. Look, he's second on the team in targets. Next closest is Justin Watson. Next closest wide receiver is Justin Watson with 40. Second in receptions, 59. Next closest, Kadarius Toney with 25. Second in receiving yards, 663. Next closest is Justin Watson. He has like 250. Third in pass play snaps and sixth in route participation right now on this team. And he didn't get going until week 4, week 5, really.
Yeah, well, maybe not even then. I mean, he's really wasn't a big factor into the last handful of weeks.
Well, okay, so the last 3 weeks, 10, 9, and 10 targets.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean,
they're working him in more.
Exactly. He's really getting his opportunities now.
Well, and he's especially in the red zone. And this is what you want to see out of these rookies when you're looking at, okay, where are they participating? How are they participating? He leads all wide receivers in red zone targets with 17, catches with 13, yards with 88, reception percentage 76.5, touchdowns with 5, and target percentage 42.5. So
I like those numbers.
Well, especially in an offense that scores a lot, usually.
Yeah. It's been a little down lately.
Right now, Dave,
not the same.
Yeah, but that's because they don't have a receiving presence. That's what I'm saying here is that Rashee Rice is that guy. Realistically, what does Travis Kelce have in the tank? 2024, maybe 2025, but he's going to ramp down production these next 2 seasons. We're already seeing it a little bit this year. In Dynasty rankings, I think he's tight with Taylor. Yeah, no, totally. I don't think he'll retire after this season, but I think there's a good chance he retires after 2024. And they're going to have an entire offseason to work Rashee Rice into this offense in a meaningful way to try and maybe salvage a 2025 season for Kelce. Maybe don't get him so beat up so he wants to come back for one more year. I don't see any reason why he should be wide receiver 33 in Dynasty right now. That doesn't make any sense. But I'll buy him at that price. The dude could be a wide receiver 1 next year. I mean, he could be as high in this offense. He has wide receiver 5, wide receiver 4 potential. I'm not saying it's highly likely, but the potential's there. And look, dude, elite receivers don't grow on trees. And that's what in offenses that want to throw the ball more than run, that need a wide receiver to emerge because their other options are Justin Watson and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. You go and you get guys when their price is this cheap. This is a dynasty win move, in my opinion.
Sure.
Go get like Rashee Rice. You just
the size speed combination here. You know, this is a big fella who runs fast.
So he's a big dude.
That.
Yep. Oh, 100%. All right. Next guy we're going to talk about, Demario Douglas in New England. And Dave, this is your guy here. And I love that you threw this on here because I'm a big Demario Douglas fan. Take it away, buddy.
Well, I mean, look, the Patriots are doing terrible record-wise this season. So they're currently sitting at number 2 in the draft order for 2024. You got to imagine they're going to take a quarterback, you know, like a Caleb Williams or a Drake May, probably. Demario Douglas is measuring up in some interesting categories with some names you've heard of. He's got 2.0 yards per route, which is the same as Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams. 27 targets per route, the same as Justin Jefferson, Diggs, Jalen Waddle, Mike Evans. And 11.4 yards per receptions, which is the same as Diggs, Adams, and Chris Godwin. So, I mean, he's measuring up statistically to some really big fantasy wide receivers. He does have a lot of slot or high slot rate at 66.3. So, you know, this is a slot receiver, quick guy. He's got the perfect slot receiver build.
Well, you know, and a slot receiver it used to be kind of a death sentence for fantasy in years past. But then guys like Michael Thomas started playing the slot but not in New England. But my point, yes, in New England, the slot is like God in the Belichick offenses, right? We don't know if Bill Belichick's going to be there next season.
It sounds like he might not.
But that doesn't matter for Demario Douglas. It does sound like he might not. But that doesn't matter for me with Demario Douglas. I'm still buying him.
Right.
This is a team that's going to be under different leadership next season. There probably aren't going to be a whole lot of parts and pieces that are going to stick around. But these younger guys who are inexpensive to keep under contract are going to stay. That's Demario Douglas. That's Tyquan Thornton. That's Bailey Zappi. Guys like Mac Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, Juju. Those guys are gone. Kendrick Bourne won't be back, more than likely.
Right.
So they can sign some other veterans, some maybe higher production veterans. But I think he factors into this offense.
They're bringing in a new like X wide receiver for sure, you know. But you also got to note Demario Douglas, I love what he does with the ball in his hands, man. I mean, he only has 410 yards receiving this year, which isn't a lot, but 262 of those 410 yards, which is 64%, come after the catch. Once he gets the ball in his hands, he makes plays. And I like guys.
And that's unlike guys like Devontae. And that's unlike someone like Devontae Adams, who requires you get the ball down the field for him to get yards. He doesn't do much after the catch normally, unless he has open field. Obviously, if he gets really open, he'll do something. But Demario Douglas can do stuff in traffic with the ball. He can catch the ball in traffic, and he can almost move like a running back and get above the safeties. Yeah, I'm all about buying Demario Douglas right now, even with the uncertainty in this offense. I almost really hope that Belichick is gone, because I think that's better for a guy like Demario Douglas. I think it's really good for Ramondre Stevenson as well, still on a rookie contract. He finally gets to be a feature back in this offense. Maybe all those super expensive dynasty shares of Ramondre finally pay off. All right, Dave, enough about New England. I want to talk about one more Tennessee Titan. It's my boy, Tyjae Spears.
Yes.
If you have watched this show, Jamie Prague out there watching, you know how much I love Tyjae Spears. This goes back to the very beginning of this show when we were doing our initial rookie overviews and reviews and outlooks. Right now, Tyjae Spears is RB 29, Dave, in the ECR rankings. And I'm sorry I raised my voice, but what are we doing here? Have you seen this guy run? Have you seen him play? I understand he's in an offense with Derrick Henry, okay? I get that. But Henry has maybe one more productive season. I feel like he's older than me. He's not. He's probably still about 8 or 9 years younger than me. But the way that this guy runs, the punishment that he takes, we watch him get dinged up in season. There's going to be a point where he's going to say, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be able to walk when I'm 50. And he's going to step away. That's probably not after this season, but it could be.
Could be.
But even if he plays beyond next season, I don't believe that he's worth holding on to in fantasy. You get what you can get for him now.
It's actually a good time to move Derrick Henry if you can get some value.
Yes. Tyjae Spears, though, he's going to be the guy. Okay. He reminds me of Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones. I get that vibe from him. He's that primarily a receiving back, but I think he can get it done between the tackles as well. Maybe even more so than Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara can. He did it at Tulane. He moves well between the tackles. He finds lanes. He's shifty because of his size. And with Levis, they're starting to kind of gain that rapport. I think Tyjae Spears is a guy in 2 seasons. We're talking about, is he a top 5 back this season? Is he a top 3 back this season? Well, and if we cycle through, right? And we've been so used to guys like Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor at the top. Jonathan Taylor, for a running back, he's getting up there, right? We don't know. He's got one more year in Indy, and then we don't know what's going to happen after that. Christian McCaffrey, how much longer does he realistically have playing at the level he's playing? I'm not saying he's going to fall off anytime soon, but what, another 2 seasons? So guys like Tyjae Spears are going to start to work their way in there. We're watching Josh Jacobs fall off. Austin Eckler has had an epic fall off. If you're not a contender right now, move some of those guys and get someone like Tyjae Spears. But here's the beautiful part, though. You can get Tyjae Spears and Spears and a 2nd-round pick for Josh Jacobs, for Jonathan Taylor. Because at RB 29, if you're using these ranks as a value, or you're using really any dynasty ranks right now as your value, which you are, or if you're using a trade chart, that's what they're using as well. This is why I don't believe in trade charts, though, because if I'm holding on to Tyjae Spears, my price is going to be pretty steep, unless I have a very, very specific need that I have to address. Speaking of addressing things, Dave, we've got a few questions in the chat I want to get to here. Well, first of all, Jamie, and I should have known this was coming as a Browns fan. And look, Jamie, I'm sorry. I remember those games. I still have the NFL films of the Byers fumble on cassette, or not on cassette, on VHS somewhere around this house.
Minor.
I could watch it anytime, but Jamie, out of respect for you, I won't watch it. I'll watch it on YouTube instead. So now we've got a trade question, or start sit here in the chat. Start sit, pick 2, full PPR. Chase Brown, Gabe Davis, Josh Downs. Oh boy, I'm probably going to say Chase Brown here.
Yeah,
I don't think his.
would.
I don't think his. The thing is, I don't think his role's going away.
No, I mean, look how he did last week. You know.
Well, we
Dude
talked about
plays.
we talked about this last week. Look at his yards per carry.
Yeah. Look at his.
I love Chase Brown.
Receiving game. I mean,
and then Josh Downs. I want Josh Downs.
Yeah, that's me too. I'm sitting Gabe Davis out of these 3. So.
Yeah, I just don't see his role in the offense moving forward. They've been better without using him as often. So Chase Brown, Josh Downs is where I'm going. Jamie wants to know if we're worried about the long-term value with his arthritis knees. I mean, we saw Todd Gurley. I don't love it, but give me 2 Todd Gurley seasons, like we got out of Todd Gurley, and I'll be happy. I'll give away a first for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and you're not having to give that away. So JT is 2024. That's what I thought. So, I mean, like I'm saying, a lot of these, like,
calling him old because he's 24. I think that's what he's.
Oh, well, that could be it too. No, I'm just saying contract wise. We don't know where Jonathan Taylor's going to be playing. So, but I get your point here. We've got one more to talk about, Dave. Let's get to it here real quick. Jake Ferguson in Dallas. I love this kid.
Yes.
I was hot on him before the season started. I do believe, and I think I've brought this up on a show, maybe even with you, because we've been on air a lot together this season. I do believe I wrote about Jake Ferguson being a sneaky must-have sleeper tight end this offseason in one of my Fantasy Pros articles, because it just made the most sense to me. It just made sense. He's a talented tight end that's going to get targets. It's how the Dallas offense works. They get targets from Dak.
Right. Especially tight ends.
Yeah.
74 targets ties him for 7th amongst tight ends. 51 receptions puts him solidly in 10th, and then he's tied for 4th in touchdowns with 5. Nobody has more than 6. He's the PPR tight end 8 this year so far, Nate. So,
it's funny. We're watching Monday Night Football, and Jen said something about Jake Ferguson. Is like, no, honey, he's like tight end 8. She's like, no, he's not. It's like, no, this is how. And my wife knows more about football than I do. She's in the trenches editing. She does just as much analysis as I do. I'm just simply stating that if you're not hyper aware of who Jake Ferguson is and have him rostered or have been personally hurt by him in fantasy football, you're not aware how good Jake Ferguson has been. And that's not going to change. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I was surprised by it when I saw it. And I think the reason I looked it up was because of something you and I had talked about.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, go get Jake Ferguson, man.
Go get Jake Ferguson. Looking back at Dallas's historical tight end usage.
Yeah.
Go all the way back to 2019 with Jason Witten finishing 11th. But they've had a tight end in the top 12, at least one tight end in the top 12 every season since then. In 2020, they had 2 when Blake Jarwin was the number 1 tight end overall and Dalton Schultz was 12th overall. So,
that was a fun season. That was a real fun season.
Yeah,
especially for somebody who loves tight ends, right? Like,
I just love tight ends.
Yeah. Aren't we all in some way, shape, or form, Dave? All right, let's move on to. We promised you some fantasy playoff start sits, and we're going to give them to you. We're going to roll through these pretty quickly because we know your time is valuable. We want you to get home safely if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform. If you're watching us on YouTube, whether it's live right now or trying to kill some time at lunch, let's get you out of here. But these are players you've got to start. Dave, I'm going to roll through these starts here real quick. DeAndre Swift. Philadelphia Eagles are playing Seattle. They're coming off 3 down weeks. Philly has not looked great. DeAndre Swift has looked horrible, has not even passed 10 PPR points the last 3 weeks. But Seattle's run defense is the 5th worst against fantasy. I think this is a good week to get DeAndre Swift in there. My quarterback is Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson up against the Detroit Lions. Look, this is a team that is hot. Russell Wilson is rolling. They're coming off of a big divisional win against the Chargers. this is a statement game against a defense that's right now allowing 19.3 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Russell Wilson is a go for me this week, even in one QB formats, guys. Even in one QB. He is currently QB 11. So, Jaden Reed, Green Bay Packers. Look, not only is he showing that he can be the alpha wide receiver in this offense above Romeo Doubs and above Christian Watson, that rushing upside, man. The last 4 games, 9 carries, 100 yards, 2 tutties. Without Aaron Jones being healthy, they're going to need to incorporate him more. And even I think now at this point when Aaron Jones comes back, they can do things with him they can't do with Jones because of age and because of fragility. And A.J. Dillon just simply because he can't do them. Now the tight end one, Dave, why don't you take this guy?
Okay, so I'm going to start Isaiah Likely this week. Baltimore's at Jacksonville. Jacksonville struggles against the tight ends. They've given up some big games, including last week, David Njoku, 6 catches, 91 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then week 10, George Kittle hit him up for 3 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown. So they can definitely be had by the tight end. Likely had a great game last week. I just feel like he's due for another, and this matchup couldn't be better.
Yeah, no, I'm all about it. I love Isaiah Likely in this offense. Now, Dave, as important as starts, making sure that there are certain players that you don't get in your lineup. So we're going to roll through some sits here. The first one, Desmond Ridder, Atlanta at Carolina. He looked kind of good last week. People got a little bit excited. But, dude, it's still Desmond Ridder, and you don't want to risk it in the playoffs. And Carolina has been really good against quarterbacks, oddly enough, in fantasy. So I think they're giving up the 3rd fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks right now. So keep Desmond Ridder out of there. Jalen Waddle. This is a bad matchup for Miami's wide receivers. Tyreek's going to eat. There's no question about it. But look, this has been such an up and down season for Waddle. And don't be fooled by the fact he had a big game a few weeks back against the Jets. It's not going to happen again. This is a team that the Jets think they have a shot at the playoffs because they're delusional. And if they keep winning, they might actually. But this week they're going to run up against a Jets defense that I think can shut down Jalen Waddle. Cole Kmet, the Bears at the Browns. I am usually a Cole Kmet truther. Dave, we were a part of the Cole Kmet club for a long time.
Absolutely.
That hasn't changed. The club's not there, but it is still in my heart. He's been streaky though, right? Anywhere from 0 points week 7. He had 27 against Denver in week 4. And this Cleveland team's been just too freaking good. And this is a team that legitimately does have a shot at the playoffs with Joe Flacco behind center. Who thought we'd be saying that here in the year 2023? Right? And Cleveland's defense, they're the second best against tight ends. They're only giving up 6.1 fantasy points per game to the position. So I would not start Cole Kmet this week. Dave, we've got one more. Why don't you take it away?
All right. I may get crucified for this one, but I'm saying sit Travis Etienne. Jacksonville is facing Baltimore. Baltimore is brutal against running backs, and they've shut down some big names here. They held Joe Mixon to 69 yards in week 11, and Austin Eckler to 32 in week 12. So I don't like Travis Etienne this week. And I usually really love Travis Etienne. So it's a surprise.
Sure.
It surprises me to say that.
Well, it's an interesting situation because it's a Jacksonville team that is coming off a real rough loss to Cleveland. They're going to need to do something against Baltimore, but this Baltimore team is just getting stronger and stronger every week. They're like a hurricane, like out over the Pacific Ocean, just trucking towards the West Coast. Best team in the AFC. I have a hard time thinking Travis. Yeah. Same, man. You see my Steelers cons back there. But I'm with you on this. Travis Etienne, I think this week I think he's a sit, unfortunately. Guys, that's going to do it for us here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just want to remind everyone who's here, make sure you follow us here on YouTube and make sure you follow us on Twitter at FFDinoDiehards, at Razzball. I am at Nate Polvogt, at FFMadChester, my normal co-host, Matt Chester, and then my guest here at Dave Fantasy. And again, please make sure you like and subscribe. It helps us to continue bringing you this content every single week so we can help you win fantasy championships, make good trades, and just overall, Dave, have fun in fantasy football. Guys, good luck this week. We hope you're in the fantasy playoffs and you don't need to be thinking about these trades quite yet, but be honest, it's never too soon to think about sprucing up your roster. Make sure you go over to razzball.com. We've got even more advice, rankings, DFS, and baseball content for you. For Dave Stewart, I am Nate Polvogt. We will see you next week.